Throughout my life, I've had my bouts of loving to drink. I was not immune to the culture of frat parties and drinking while underage with my roommates in college. After I graduated from university, I had drinking parties and all that kind of thing. There's video evidence of me somewhere on the internet of using empty beer cans to construct staves with my friends and then us beating each other with those staves. That said, in the 7 years that I have been living in Japan, I have had more hangovers than the 26 years that I was living in America. Of course, I wasn't drinking when I was a baby, but it should be said that those hangovers were the very worst ones I've had in my life. I haven't drank so much in the past 2 years, 2 or 3 years, just because things change, relationships have developed and that kind of thing, and it's just not something that my body can handle as much anymore. But I still certainly drink much more here than I think I would if I were still living in the US. But why though? What is it about Japan that leads me to drink more and seemingly leads many other people to drink more? Is it just an extension of being away from your family, living in a different place that, try as you may never really fit into? Is it just an attempt at self-medication? I'm sure probably that's part of it, but what we're going to see today is that there is a much different culture built up around alcohol and built up around drinking than can be found in the United States, for example. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is Charlie, and of course this is One Cup of Japan Deep Roast. This is the first episode in what I hope will be an ongoing sub-series, I guess, that will cap off each season of One Cup of Japan. Today we're going to be looking at the drinking culture in Japan, why it is the way it is, the good, I guess the possible good and the bad that come with it, and some of the ways that it's changing as we speak. Now, just the history of Japan's drinking culture is much, much longer than the entire national history of the United States, which I guess can be said about many different things. As the Japan Times reported, Chinese envoys in like the 3rd century had reported that Japanese are given to strong drink, right? Now, that strong drink, of course, is used for a variety of things, many of which bear resemblance to activities that are done back in my home country of the US, but some of them that are vastly different, right? So alcohol can play like a role in some religious ceremonies. It can play a role in sort of like getting the stress out with your coworkers and that kind of thing. It can play a role in sort of fixing broken relationships. And I can't really back this up with data for sure, but I have a feeling that the difference in culture and the difference in how people think about things like mental illness and how people feel about seeking treatment for mental illness may also be driving some of the statistics that we're going to be looking at today. One thing that does differ entirely from the States for me is how you can be expected to be invited out to dinner. And I say dinner, but really when you go out to dinner with like a new business partner or something like that, it's only dinner in name, right? Really what you're doing is you're going out a lot of the time to get pissed drunk with somebody else, to sort of build a relationship with them, or to if it's not a new relationship, to kind of like re-cement an existing relationship or something like that, right? And it seems to me to be something that is completely unique from like the, okay, well, let's go out with a drink with your coworkers after work thing that you see happen so much in the States, right? And a lot of times there in the States, you're not going out with the aim of getting drunk, you just want to have a beer before you go home for the night, right? Which is something, of course, you can do in the States, and you can drive after a beer, right? Something like that, it's something that people do, and you probably will not find that happening here because laws are so much stricter around drinking and driving. Drinking back home in the States with coworkers and even occasionally with people who were above me in the organization always felt like a voluntary exercise. Maybe it was encouraged if you wanted to get closer to your coworkers, or if you wanted to just have kind of like normal conversation and get to know your bosses better or something like that. But I never really felt as though I had to do it or was being pressured to do it, right? No one ever said, for my company, especially not my boss, ever said, hey, let's just get smashed, that kind of thing. And certainly nobody's going to say that to you exactly, or at least in my experience, no one has said that to me, like let's just get effed up kind of thing. But there is certainly a pressure here to do so with your coworkers that I don't feel exists back in the States, for example. Now let's start it with the numbers. The most recent statistics show that the average alcohol consumed per person in Japan annually is 80 liters. And I say that, and when I was writing like the general outline for this, it struck me as strange, but actually, of course, saying it aloud puts it on an entirely new level, because I have to imagine, right, if you imagine 2-liter bottles of Coca-Cola, except they're all filled with hard liquor, and they're just stacked on top of each other, right, 40 of them, how much space in my apartment, or just this living room area that would take up. Now, when I first saw that statistic, I wasn't really sure what it meant, right? I thought surely that can't be all that different from like the United States, where I'm from. But I did a little digging into the numbers, of course, in the States and also in Australia and the UK. I chose those places because if I was ever going to make bad decisions around alcohol with people from other countries while I've lived here, it was always with people from the UK and Australia, so that's why we chose those countries. Now, I did have a little bit of a feeling that, just sort of anecdotally, that the numbers were going to be slightly higher here in Japan, just because, as I said, it just seems like it's much more part of the culture here. But when I did dive into those numbers, again, looking at the UK, Australia, and the US, the difference sort of knocked me on my ass, so to speak. What I found is that from the UK to Australia to the US, the numbers only range from about 9 liters per person to 9.5 liters per person annually, which still, if you think about how much poison literally you're putting in your body, that is a lot to consider. But to think about that the average person here nationally takes in 9 times that per year, it gives you reason to pause and think. Now, of course, I've already talked about some of the reasons why drinking may be so prolific here in Japan, right? Those religious things, those business things, and some of the other stuff that we talked about. But we haven't really talked about the support structure that sort of makes it all possible, right? Now, first, let's talk anecdotes. Probably within the range of my company, like a 5-minute walk, the izakaya, the local bar that I usually go to, is about 3 minutes from my school. And if I walk maybe 5 minutes in the other direction, there's another drinking place. And then if I keep turning right, there's another drinking place. And if I keep going, what would be north, I suppose, then I would get to another drinking place. And then if I want to go a little bit more towards where I live, there's another drinking place. So within about a 5-minute circumference, right, parameter around my school, I can get to about 5 different drinking spots, right? Now, again, I thought maybe this is just, I don't know, maybe it's a happy accident, who knows, but looking into the numbers, again, it's a little bit staggering. Japan is home to approximately 233,000 drinking establishments. Of course, that number is rounded. If you do the math, that's equal to about 1,841 stores, shops, drinking places per 10,000 people. For the sake of comparison, if we look at the United States, there are 1.8 bars, nightclubs, and other places that are meant for drinking per 10,000 people. Again, the difference is quite incredible to see. Now, even if you don't want to go to the bar, it is extremely easy to get your hands on cheap alcohol that will put you into a blackout very, very quickly, right? One thing that I think is super noticeable when you go to like a bar, for example, is that even like mass-produced beer that isn't exactly great is like about 500 yen, 450 to 650 yen, I suppose, for like it's not a pint, I think it's almost a pint of beer, which to me, coming from the States, that's quite expensive, right? That's like buying a Budweiser for $5. It would just be, I would rather just like piss on my money and light it on fire. That's a strange thing to say, but that to me is about the same effect, right? But despite the fact that beer can be quite expensive in that way, what you will find is the Chu-hai style of drinks, right? Which it seemed to be very, very popular among the foreign community, myself included. These are drinks that are usually like Chuhai is basically like a liquor mixed with like a sparkling water, right? Soda water, that kind of thing. Like lemon and lime flavors are very, very popular, and of course there's seasonal variations of that. But again, these are 9% alcohol drinks, and usually they come in 350 milliliter to 500 milliliter cans. And if you get one of those smaller cans, if you go to, like, for example, like one of the drugstores, you can get them for like 108 yen or 110 yen or something like that, possibly plus tax. And so what you see here is not only do you have like this structure in place where you can go out and you can drink really anytime, anything that you want to, right? Because there's always going to be a place close by, just by virtue of the numbers. But even if you don't want to go to one of those places, if you have like a couple hundred yen coins in your wallet, right, you can buy 2 cans of this 9% alcohol and really have yourself an evening, right, real quick. Now, of course, if social attitudes were not sort of accepting of drinking in the culture, then probably there wouldn't be so many establishments, right? Like, people would not go drinking in volume, and so you just could not support over 1,800 drinking places per person, right? It just would not be feasible. But one thing I think you come to notice when you move over here is that attitudes around heavy or habitual drinking are markedly different than you will find them to be, for example, in the United States, right? There is this idea that I grew up hearing, of course, just you know, in passing from my parents when they were talking about somebody at a family party who was acting like a jerk, and then I heard it more when I went to university and I started drinking more myself. There's this idea that alcohol is not some sort of like corrupting force, right? It is not the reason for you doing something wrong. Oppositely, what you hear is that alcohol is sort of like it's like a paint stripper, right? It tears off that bit of varnish that makes you look good and shows everybody what is underneath. So if you are you're a raging racist asshole because you've had a couple beers, probably that is your true character, right? That is the idea. It is one I still subscribe to, by the way. But oppositely here, there is some idea, or not some idea, kind of a pervasive idea that alcohol it's a corrupting influence, right? It makes you do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. And something I talked a little bit on, I think probably our most recent live stream on this channel, was about how I had my own run-in with acting like a dick because I'd have a couple drinks, and anyway, long story short, I was asked to leave my favorite place that I still go to, and pretty much the next day I was very apologetic, and I was like, why are you apologizing? It's cool, man, like you just had too much to drink or whatever, we're good. And since that point, the owners of this establishment, who were my friends at that point, have become even better friends. And if it were just that situation, I would think, okay, well, maybe they're just being nice to me because I'm the foreign guy, which is something that happens right here. But seeing how people react to much worse sort of offenses that are committed while people are under the influence of alcohol, and seeing like the forgiveness, and not even outright forgiveness, but just like being like, well, they were drinking, like maybe cut them some slack, that kind of thing, like that 50% forgiveness kind of thing is much more common. And as I said, it's not just about being too loud and being noisy and an owner of a restaurant asking you to go home. There are things like, verbal assault, physical assault, sexual assault that take place while people are drinking, and you still hear a lot of the time like, oh yeah, it's too bad it happened, but he was drinking, and what are you gonna do, right? He's the guy who was drinking, so boop. Sort of kind of on a related note, I know that, for example, back home, if you are the kind of person, I don't want to phrase it that way, but if you go home and you have like 1 or 2 drinks every night, right? 2 or 3 drinks every night, something like that, then people will start to think that maybe you have a little bit of a problem, because maybe it means that you're self-medicating for something, or you're not able to sleep at night for some hidden reason, and so you're using alcohol to get the job done, kind of thing, right? It shows some kind of dependence. But how it is seen here much more often is it's just a good way, a common way that people just sort of release a lot of the stress that they can't release in other ways, probably because of certain limitations that are placed on them as part of the social culture. And something you'll also see if you've ever spent any time on Japanese Tinder, it's also seen as like a benign hobby, though I don't know why drinking is a hobby or how that's really an exciting way to spend your free time, but anyway, that's just me. Now, this sort of outright acceptance of drinking and like blaming your bad actions on drinking and that kind of thing, there are signs that it is changing. I don't know how widespread it is, but for example, again, if we're going into the anecdotal, like if I take the Fukutatsu, which is the local Fukui light rail system, you can see signs that say something like, if you attack somebody, it's not the alcohol's fault, it's your fault, that kind of thing, right? And so there are signs anecdotally that things are changing, but there are signs that sort of are borne out by the numbers that maybe the drinking culture here is starting to become less acceptable isn't quite the way to put it, but at least less popular. Now, one shift that's been happening over the last number of years is the move towards beer. Now, this is something I was I was quite ignorant of, and something that surprised me when I moved here was how much beer people drink. I think I assumed because the only contact I had with Japanese drinking culture, even after I'd come to do like my study abroad, my abroad experiences here, was like bottles of sake that I could buy back in the States. I guess I just assumed that was the main form of libation that people sort of partook in over here. And of course, it's a really stupid, uneducated thing to think. But anyway, there you are. And what I found when sort of digging into the numbers for this topic is like actually 30% of all alcohol that is drank in this country is beer, and it comes only second to liqueurs, and only very, very slightly, something like 0.3% less popular than liqueurs. So people are drinking a lot of beer. Now, the reason this is important is because it is part of this trend away from high alcoholic drinks like shochu and things of that nature towards either low alcohol or completely non-alcoholic drinks. As the 2019 consumption of those low alcohol or non-alcoholic drinks had quadrupled over previous years. So obviously that is a considerable change. Now, it's not just the types of alcohol that are changing, but also sort of the habits around alcohol that are changing. Again, if you look at the statistics ranging back about 30 years, you can see sort of a downward trend in how many people are sort of drinking habitually in sort of all of the age groups that there's data for. When data from 2016 is compared to that from 1988, you can see like this huge drop. 60% of men aged 40 to 49 had a drinking habit in 1988 versus only 40% in 2016. Likewise, women in the same age group saw a drop from 18% to 10%, right? So that's a really big difference. Now, the reports on the whys of why this is happening are sort of speculative, a lot of them, right? We can see by the numbers that there is this sort of shift away from this heavy regular drinking culture happening, but the reports seem to be more anecdotal, right? What it all seems to come down to, though, is time and money. No surprise there. Young Japanese men in particular are receiving lower wages for doing the same or a greater amount of work than they were like in the past during like the bubble period, for example. At the same time, part-time work and other less secure working situations are increasing. Now, this obviously has direct ramifications for this sort of nomikai, inkai culture where you would go out drinking with your coworkers a lot, right? Because part-time workers are more likely just to go directly home after work because their working hours, basically their working time finishes a lot earlier in the day. That's one thing. And there's also this increasing feeling that people don't want to spend what little free time they have with people that they might not necessarily like, right? Of course, in your free time, you want to spend time with your friends, your family, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever the case may be. This is something I've experienced myself, both the sort of money and the time problem. For example, there is sort of like this unspoken rule that when somebody leaves the company, right, they're gonna move to a new job or they're gonna move to a new prefecture, assuming that the send-off is sort of amicable, whatever that means, that you're gonna take them out, you're gonna get them drunk, and you're going to foot the bill. Now, that's fine, right? But what ends up happening, even if it's not like a sort of send-off party for somebody, is that everybody in the party will split the drinks evenly, right? So let's say that I'm like well, I'm still young, but let's say I were younger, right? I were a young person with not a lot of money, and I go out drinking with my coworkers or something like that, and I just have like, you know, I'm not even gonna drink. Let's say I have like an oolong tea and I have like a couple pieces of fried chicken and maybe some potato salad or something like that, right? Everybody else has like 4 or 5 drinks, and like, you know, they have like the full smorgasbord going on of different foods. And at the end, when that bill comes, I'm still gonna be made to pay an even amount to everybody, right? Because it'll be evenly split most of the time. And so I could see, and I do see, and I have seen, how that doesn't sit right with people who, you know, are like, maybe they don't even want to be there, and maybe they don't even really have that kind of cash to be throwing around. Time, as I said too, is kind of an issue. In my experience, the average nomikai lasts from like 3 to 5 hours. And while I'm sure it's probably different in some situations, my experience with that time has not been one of like, so tell me more about yourself, like let's get to know each other and maybe become friends as well as coworkers, as much as it is just like complaining about all the things you couldn't complain about at your job in the workplace. That kind of thing, right? And that is part of this that is part of this idea that sort of anything is forgiven as long as there's booze involved, right? Like you can go and you can like shit all over like the working situation as long as there's booze involved. And so that's what ends up happening at these kind of events, and I just find it to be incredibly stressful. And it's just like, you know, why? And it's not just that, right? Because as much as like I said, a lot of things will be forgiven because of booze, there is sort of like, you know, even if you kind of understand that, you're still gonna sort of like choose your words more carefully. You're going to, why can't I remember the English expression? But basically you're gonna be careful with your words, right? You're gonna be tiptoeing around, like for example, your bosses, because you don't want to endanger your job. And it's just like, who wants to drink in that kind of like high pressure situation, you know? It's just, you can't relax. And then of course, as we talked about, even if you wanted to partake in these kind of situations, maybe you just don't have the opportunity to do so because you have a part-time job and you're finishing at like 3 or 4 o'clock, and you don't want to wait around for 3 or 4 more hours for everybody else to get out of work, and so you're just gonna go home because nothing's open yet. Now, of course, none of this should be taken to mean that Japan is going to transition into a full-blown like dry county or dry country anytime soon. That's just not the case. But there are some clear statistics showing that there is a shift away towards what, in my opinion, would be a more healthy approach towards alcohol. That said, this is not, of course, my attempt to judge the culture in any way. These are it's just me looking at the facts and trying to explain the situation here. It's an interesting difference from where I grew up, of course, and it's, you know, it's interesting to see a culture that is sort of, dying is not the right word, but making its transition, a culture that has existed for 1700 years. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit more of an in-depth look at Japanese drinking culture. I really enjoyed doing this. The research process was quite fun, and there's some good surprises in there. But now I'd like to turn it over to you guys, of course. I'd like to hear like what your experiences have been drinking in Japan versus drinking at home. What kind of experiences have you had drinking with coworkers? Again, drinking in Japan versus drinking in your home country. That kind of thing. Please let me know down in the comments below, on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. And on that note, guys, I do want to thank all of you for watching, not just this first Deep Roast episode, but for watching this first season of One Cuppa since coming back to YouTube. I guess what would be 3 months ago. It's been a lot of fun reconnecting with people and making things again. So I really, really appreciate it. Please, if you like this kind of video, please consider supporting my Patreon, because the more funding that's over there, the more likely it will be that these will become more like 2 or 3 episodes every season of One Cuppa versus just 1, because they take a lot more time and energy and editing and that kind of thing to make than the normal One Cuppas. And then of course, if you do that too, you'll get access to the aforementioned Teraha Nihongo a week early. You'll be able to see the exclusive content that's only ever going to be published on Patreon. So please consider checking it out. And after that lengthy bout of self-promotion, again, thank you always so much for watching. I will see you all very soon indeed. And yeah, guys, thank you. Cheers.